On this episode of the Just in Time podcast with Justin Kutcher.
With Diana, if she was starting her career in the WNBA now, she would be one of those players like Caitlin who would fuel the viewership. The only thing I've heard of a comparison that I think is pretty close is what Tiger Woods did for golf. It's sitting next to Shaq in this convertible as we're having this parade. My mom did not want me to go to UConn. Rebecca, UConn's a safety school.
The greatest sports moments happen in seconds, but the stories behind them are timeless. Dive into the mind of the icons who lived those moments. No filters, just authentic conversations about the moments that define careers. I'm Justin Kutcher, and this is the Just in Time podcast. Welcome to another edition of the Just in Time podcast with Justin Kutcher, joined now by somebody who is in the Basketball Hall of Fame, an Olympic gold medalist, a national champion in women's college basketball. She's also the voice of women's college basketball, both in college and in the WNBA. Someone that I actually worked with years ago, Rebecca Lobo. Rebecca, it's so good to see you again. It's been a long time.
It's been a really long time. One of my fondest memories though is walking around Louisville. You and I were in Louisville, right? For so the first two rounds of the NCAA tournament.
Yep.
This is 15 years ago. This is back in 2010. I'm pregnant with my fourth child, but like not really telling people. And I just remember telling you though, like, I'm not feeling awesome. And this is the reason why. But my favorite memory is walking and we're going to the place for dinner. And the guy coming over to us and he's like, "Hey, I'm the Pimp of DeVille. I'm the Pimp of DeVille." And like in my memory, maybe this is not right, but in my memory, he was like in a red suit.
You're right.
That might just round out like the story. And but I just remember like thinking that was the funniest thing ever. As you and I are waiting with some of the other guys on the crew to go get some dinner.
He said, "I'm the biggest pimp in DeVille."
Okay, that's what it was.
And then he was playing music, I think. And as we're leaving the restaurant, he's singing a song and you walk by and he's like, "She's long and she's tall." And you're like, "All right, I got to go back and give this guy some money." That was great.
Oh my gosh, yes. Your memory is better and it makes the story better. And that's just, and I am long and I am tall. So he was also an observant Pimp of DeVille.
Hey, it's why he's the best one there, because he's paying attention to what's going on.
What? Did we get that into the broadcast?
I think we did.
Okay, because like when I was younger, I don't know what my comfort level was getting those kind of things in. Like if that happened today, you better believe that would like be mentioned in the first quarter of any game.
It would make the open. Like
right.
So-and-so, well, this is the biggest Pimp in DeVille.
Oh my gosh, that was something. And every time, and I might do like a game at Louisville every 1 or 2 years now, and every time I'm there, I think of that guy every single time, and you, of course.
Well, that's a great thing, and that's a great way to be remembered for me. Is that you think of me and the biggest pimp in DeVille all at one time, which
yes.
I don't know if it gets much better. And the funny part about that is now I was looking back at our texts and I see like every time we text, there's some reference to that exactly, like the biggest pimp in DeVille.
I mean, how can there not be? It's like just embedded in both of our memories. So yes, I love that.
And I love that you remember telling me that you were pregnant, you're not telling anybody. And I'm like, "Hey, I'm running to Qdoba for a breakfast burrito. Do you want something? I'll bring it to your room," whatever. We had so much fun during that time. And it's led to all these years
did.
now.
Yeah,
Michigan State was
15
playing.
years ago. Holy smokes, that's crazy.
Yeah. And you still look the same. So kudos to you, because you have what,
As to
4
you.
kids?
As to you. Yeah, and I was talking to somebody. I was doing a Chicago Sky game yesterday, and was talking to a guy, and he's like, your oldest kids must be in high school, right? I said, my youngest 2 are in high school. My oldest 2 are in college. I'm gonna have a college grad within the next year. Like, time, man, it just goes and goes.
That's insane.
Yeah.
It's so crazy, because that's where I wanted to start the conversation with you today, was college. I mean, that's how I know Rebecca Lobo. You were a legend at UConn. You win the national championship, the first one at UConn. But take me back to when you were in high school. Gino Auriemma is recruiting you, and Gino's not a big name at this point.
No,
So
no.
what was the recruiting pitch?
Like it helped that I grew up in Massachusetts. So like at least on to a degree on our like local newscasts and in the Hartford Current, there was, people writing about UConn women's basketball because they were getting to be really good in the Big East. But certainly they weren't a national power yet. They went to their first Final Four the spring after I had signed my senior year in high school. So when I had signed, they hadn't been to a Final Four. They had, they'd won Big East championships, but that was kind of what their ceiling was at that time. And but like I just really, really enjoyed him, and I really enjoyed Coach Daly, and I enjoyed all the players on the team. My junior year in high school, I would go up a couple times, maybe even my sophomore year, and watch games at Gamble Pavilion, and met the players, and was like, I really fit well here with this group. The interesting part of the story is that my parents were both teachers in Connecticut. I grew up in Massachusetts, but right on the border. They're both teachers in Connecticut. My mom's a guidance counselor, and my mom did not want me to go to UConn. She's like, Rebecca, UConn's a safety school. You go there when you can't get into Stanford or Northwestern or Notre Dame or Virginia or all the other places that I was visiting on official visits for basketball. But I just really wanted to go there. I really wanted to play for Coach Auriemma. I got along with him really well. He was super honest with me in the recruiting process, but he was also like, he's just people who've gotten to know him at all. He's hilarious. And I just felt like that was where I needed to go. And remember, telling my parents, like, this is where I really wanted to go. They were not happy about it. And, in hindsight, they said it was the best decision I ever made. But it was a hard decision for me to make because I knew I really wanted to go there. I knew I really wanted to play for him and Chris Daly. But my parents absolutely did not want me to go there.
You have a brother who went to Dartmouth, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so you and I have that in common. Your brother went to Dartmouth, my brother went to Cornell, my older sister went to UPenn. The difference is that I wasn't being recruited, so I didn't have the option, and I went to BU, and it's like, "Gee, who's the idiot in that family?"
Well, and add the layer for me because my brother goes to Dartmouth. He had scholarship offers to other Division I schools, but my parents took out a second mortgage on their home to pay for him to go to Dartmouth because Ivy Leagues don't give scholarships. And like I had an opportunity to go to Stanford or Northwestern for free. My parents were like, "We actually can afford for you to go to UConn. We don't want you to necessarily go there." But yeah, like I just kind of, and it's kind of how I've guided my children, and especially the older two who are in college. Is like you got to follow your heart. You've got to go where you feel like you're going to belong, so that you can be happy. And certainly with sports, that was an added layer for me. But yeah, you and I, we're part of that club together. The disappointing your folks fraternity. That's you and me.
Yeah, exactly. So at what point did your parents kind of come around to you ultimately deciding and playing at UConn?
Um, well, to their credit, once I told them I really wanted to go there, they kind of accepted the decision, reluctantly a little bit. And then my first couple of years at UConn, there were times I really struggled a lot because Coach Auriemma is really hard to play for. He would call me, you're the worst post player in America. He would yell at me every day in practice. Like it was hard. It was
Yeah.
hard. And I would call home and complain a lot. And remember one time my sophomore year, my mom said, you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to go and talk with Coach Auriemma and figure this out, or you're going to transfer. She said, but I'm not the person who can take care of this for you. You're going to have to take care of this for yourself. And so that's what I did. I went and I had a great conversation with him. And then, after that, as things started to get better, especially my junior year, we go to the Elite Eight. There's a lot of attention now on UConn women's basketball. My senior year, we're undefeated, win a national championship. So I think my junior year, when I started to be really happy with how everything was coming together, my grades were always good. I think that's when my parents were like, all right, she made the right decision. We can be at peace with it now.
What was the conversation that you had with Gino?
So I went in with coach and I sat down and I just said to him like, it's really hard for me. You yell at me all the time. I just feel like I can't do anything right. This is not really fun for me right now. And I distinctly remember this too. We had media guides in those days, like these magazines with photos, and also there were Q&A in there, and he pulls out the media guide and he opens it to my page, and he said, in here it asks you what your dream is in terms of basketball, and you say you want to play on an Olympic team. He said, is that still your goal? And I said, yes. And he said, well, some days when you come to practice, you're terrific and you're the best player on the floor. Some days you come to practice and you're the worst player on the floor, and you make mistakes repeatedly, even when I correct them. And he said, you have the talent to be an Olympian. He said, and if you aren't one, it will be because I have failed you as your coach. I have to hold you to a standard. I have to make sure that every single day that you come to practice, you are great. And that if you make a mistake, you correct it right away. I have to do that for you. And so it put everything in a completely new light for me. And it made me understand, okay, this is why he's always so hard on me. He knows what I can be, and he has to help me get there. I think later that day we practiced. I had a great practice. Everything was good. The next day in practice, I do something stupid. And coach, in front of everybody, like he's standing at like midcourt, he looks at Chris Daly. He said, she has the nerve. She's going to do this, and she has the nerve to come into my office and complain to me about the way I yell at her, so that everybody on the team could hear. Now, first of all, I thought our meeting was private. But like that's kind of how he operates, because he wanted everybody to know I was in his office complaining about him yelling at me. And then, like, this is not okay for you then to come out here and not perform well. You are, like, basically saying you are accountable not just to me but to all of your teammates. And so he certainly didn't get any easier on me after that conversation, but at least it was the first time I really understood, like, okay, I realize now why he's yelling at me. It's not just to be mean. There's an end game here.
I take a couple things away from that. One, he read the media guide.
Yes.
He actually paid attention to what your goals were.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without you telling him specifically, this is what I want. He read it and said, okay, she wants to make an Olympic team.
Yeah.
Like, that sticks out to me. And then two, the fact that he was as hard on you, didn't let up, but you bought in. I feel like that's what has made Gino Auriemma the greatest women's basketball coach of all time. And people can make an argument that he's the greatest college basketball coach of all time. Why do players ultimately buy in and want to play for him?
You either have to buy in or you got to get out of there, because it's that hard. And like what I've noticed, because, I've been covering them pretty much since I graduated. So I've been covering them for the last 30
Don't
years.
say it.
Yeah, I know. Last 30 years is, I don't think he's changed. Like some former players might say, he's gotten a little easier. I don't think he has. And it sometimes it takes it takes really good players, sometimes maybe 2 years to figure them out. And that's what it was for me. Like, but by the time they're a junior, they've been benched at some point in their first 2 years. They've been through it, and they kind of figure it out. And now he's got a new crop of young guys that he can get on a lot in practice, because the older guys have kind of learned it. So obviously he gets really talented, mentally strong people to come there. He in a lot of ways has the pick of the litter. But other schools, especially recently, have also gotten really good and talented players. Every year during the tournament, like I'll talk about, no one prepares their team better for March than Coach Auriemma. And it's because of how hard he is and how demanding practices are from September on. And he just has a way of holding all of his players accountable. And again, when I go to practices and watch him now, I think it's the same as when I was there. It's just a lot funnier when it's not you he's yelling at. Like, 'cause some of the stuff he says is hilarious, but when it's geared at you on the court, it's nothing's funny, because you're just holding back tears at times. But now I'll just sit there and I shake my head. I'm like, first of all, that was really funny. But second of all, I know exactly, like, what he's doing. It happened to Jana El Alfy this past NCAA tournament. So I covered UConn throughout the entire tournament. I was in stores for the first two rounds, then I was with them in Spokane, and then at the Final Four. and the practices leading up to their first tournament game, and they know they're going to beat their opponent by 40 points. He's just all over Jana, all over Jana. If she misses a layup, like in front of everybody, he's yelling at her. He's, yelling towards her by talking to Chris Daly or one of his assistants. He's just riding her hard, really, really, really hard. And I was just sitting there and I said to one of my colleagues, I said to Beth Mowens, I was like, he doesn't need Jana to win a game in the first 2 rounds. But if you look at like their regional site and you look at who they might face in the Final Four, he's going to need her. She's their 6'5" center. She brings something that none of the other players do in terms of her size and skill. I was like, he's going to need her down the road. He's like setting that table right now. They go through the first 2 rounds, he's all over her. They go through the regionals, same thing. He's just crushing her in practice. Like anytime not crushing her, but like every time she misses a layup, every time she misses a shot, he stops and points it out. And like, that's hard as a player. But then what happens in the semifinal game? They go against UCLA, who has Lauren Betts, who's the best center in the country at 6'7". Jana has that defensive assignment, and she plays a phenomenal game. The game doesn't end up being close, but it could have. And she was going to be a really important piece in that game. That's like what he does. He knows at some point I'm going to need Jana. So even if it's not in these first 4 games of the tournament, that was like the player that he was kind of all over. And now when I watch it like from the sideline and know kind of what is happening, I'm like, I get it. He's going to need her and she's going to be ready. And then I said to him something, after that game against UCLA, he's like, oh yeah, I pulled Jana aside and talked to her before the UCLA game. I'm like, and I know he did, because that's what he does too. He gets on you in practice, and then maybe once or twice a year, he'll pull you aside, have a kind of conversation with you, and you just like, all right, I'm ready to run through a wall for this guy. And that's an example of something that like he still does it. That's how he coached me. It's how he's coached all these players along the way. And it's one of the reasons I do think the numbers prove he's the best coach we've ever seen in the history of the women's college game, for sure.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And I love what you just talked about there. I also see the relationships that he has, the bonds that he has with the women who play for him. It seems different than what other coaches have. Like, he gets on you, he gets on Paige Bueckers, like he rides the stars. But then afterwards, it's that tough love, and you're like, man, I love this guy. Like, I'll do anything for him. And he still jokes with you, after you may have had a great game, and he'll get on you. How does that bond form? How has he had such success with all these players? The fact that you'll all go back and do whatever he asks. Like, yeah, coach, I'm there for you.
Yeah, I think there's a couple layers to it. One of them is, you just, whatever the reason is, maybe because he is so hard to like please in some way, that you're always striving for that, whether it's practices or games, is like, kind of like a father figure who you're trying to get their approval. I think there's a piece of that. I think there's also like one of the things I've noticed from him, and I noticed it when I was there, and then again since covering him, is he never, like, he always sticks up for his players publicly. Like, he'll get all over you in film session or practice. You need to do this better, this is terrible, whatever. But when he's forward facing with the public or in a media session, he's got your back always. He never blames his players. He might call out something to a degree, but he's never a coach who says, if we had just followed the game plan, my game plan, which of course was a great game plan, if we just followed it, we would have won. He never does that crap. He never like says, if so-and-so was better, it's this player's fault or anything like that. So you feel that. You feel his loyalty in the bigger picture. And then when you have success, and you saw it with Paige this year, she's there for 5 years. They have some give and take along the way, and times when he's really hard on her. And then when they win that national championship and she's coming off the floor, you just see sort of the love that there is between them with one another. And I think a lot of us who played for him feel that, because you've been through a lot of hard things. But the whole time that he cares for you. The whole time that he's being honest with you, that he has your best interest at heart. It's not about him winning his 12th championship. It's about you winning your first. You feel that. And yeah, there's an incredible loyalty that, when they had when he had his record breaking game this past November, there's the 40th celebration, the anniversary of, their 40th year coaching, and all the players who came back. There's just an incredible fondness that all of us have for him. And it's interesting too, because like Paige is 30 years younger than me, but she and I like had probably 4 years of a very similar on-court experience in terms of what we dealt with him,
Yeah.
in practices and games. Obviously the off-court stuff isn't similar at all, but on-court it is. And so then players then have a bond with one another because you have this shared experience of playing for him. It's a really unique thing, I think, to that program in terms of the longevity and how many layers are woven through it.
Yeah. I mean, think about the UConn women's basketball program has stayed on top of the mountaintop for 30 years. Like that's what UCLA did with John Wooden.
Yeah. And the crazy part is, like, the 8-year drought or 9-year drought between championships, they still went to the Final Four every year. There's 1 year. I think they've gone to the 25 of the last 26 or something. There's something crazy in there. Final Fours. And no, it can't be quite that, but it was like this 9-year drought of championships, but they're at the Final Four every year. It's just this incredibly high standard of expectation there.
One aspect of your relationship with Gino that I love is whenever you do an interview with him on TV, he's got a rule for you. What's the rule?
Well, this was when I was a sideline reporter. So, so this started, gosh, I don't even remember. Maybe it was around 2008 or 2009, somewhere in there. And I'm a sideline reporter during the tournament, and I'm down in Greensboro, North Carolina. So after the game, I interview him, and then later on that day or the next day, I see him, and he said, "Rebecca, when you interview me, can you please take off your goddamn heel?" That's gonna be standing on the baseline. And like, I just found it so like ridiculous and funny. And so, for years after that, when I was a sideline reporter, when I'd interview him, I'd always wear the shoes that did like my heels, if they ones I could slide my feet in. So when I did the interview, I'd take one shoe off, like get get a little shorter to be able to do the interview. And Holly Rowe, who's like the best sideline reporter going, she said to me one time, she's like, "Oh, you don't have to take off your shoes. You just have to do the wide stance." She's like, "When you're tall and you do like a tripod wide stance, and then you can do the interview." I'm like, and I said, "Because that looks less silly. You need a tripod stance than if I just slide my shoe off." So yeah, for years, now I don't do as much, like if I'm
Right.
interviewing him, we're both usually sitting down. But I tell you what, Justin, if I was going to go over and interview him standing up, I would still out of respect and love for my former coach, take off my heels.
It's so good, and it's just something that, again, like you just said, out of love for your coach, you're gonna do that, and I know what he's going through because I'm about his height, and when I work with you or basically any other analyst, people always tell me, "Hey, Kutch, you might wanna stand on a box." I'm like, "I am!"
That's that's one of Ryan Rucco's favorite stories, because I've been working with Rucco now for 12 years, and or over 12 years. And he started on WNBA, and then he was going to do an NBA game, and Phil Dean was his producer, and Phil like runs into Ryan in the lobby of the hotel or something. And he said to him, "Oh, you're a normal sized guy." I thought, because I always see you next to Rebecca on TV, I thought you're like a little dude. And Ryan's like, "No, 5'10" or whatever he claims to be. And so yeah, so now what we do is, like, when we do our open, what you were generally sitting, we do our open, Ryan's got like a little cushion to
Mhm.
sit on, so we're a little more even. And if we do an open where we're both standing, like, we get chairs or something to lean on. And like, he's fine with the height difference, and so am I, but it looks a little
Right.
it can be a little distracting. So we work our way, or we work our way around.
I did a game one time where my analyst, this is when I'm kind of first starting out. I'm doing Division II basketball. My analyst is like 6'7", 280, right? And they have him sitting on a stool and they have me standing up. And he's like, "And what would you like for Christmas, young man?"
I was gonna say, were you like his ventriloquist doll?
And the thing is, he was still taller.
Did he say that?
Yes.
Oh, good. I love it. I love it. Good, good, good. I mean, it's
I
like people come in different sizes. It's okay.
I have a picture from when I was with the Wizards of I did a thing with Kristaps Porzingis, who's 7'3",
Yeah.
right? And we're standing up and I'm just on the ground and it's ridiculous, right? Now I was like, hang on. And I stand up on the chair. I put my arm on his shoulder and he turns around and he goes, he's still shorter. And it's true.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's a different world too when you're in the NBA because when you're talking about no longer 6 foot somethings, but 7 foot somethings, yeah, forget that.
It is so crazy. So, okay, that 1995 season, you referenced it before, you guys go undefeated. That was the first basketball championship for UConn, men or women. And I can remember being in the state and people just going crazy for the women's basketball team.
How old are you in 95?
15.
Okay. Oh, good.
And I wish I could say I was like 5, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I can remember even riding the bus to school and hearing, the local radio stations talking about you guys. What was the pressure like as you're going and you're winning every game and it's mounting and okay, are we going to win the national championship? Are we going to be undefeated? Because once you get to postseason, you can't lose.
Yeah. Yeah. What's interesting is that like it's not something we talked about. We didn't talk about undefeated. We didn't talk about national championship. We were like, and you hear this a lot from athletes, but it is truly sincere. We were just focused on that day in practice. We were just focused on that thing. And you have to understand too that going undefeated, it's a thing now. Like teams do it relatively frequently in women's college basketball. They didn't then. The last team to do it was like 1986. So it's not something like that we were thinking about. Like, oh, we might go undefeated because people didn't do that. It wasn't something you thought about. And in terms of the pressure too, like it was so different from now because there was no social media, there was no access to athletes really, other than like what was written about in the paper or your classmates at UConn. And in those days, when we were on campus, we were just treated like normal, normal students in class. Um, so it was very different. There was none of that external nonsense that kids have to deal with now. There was none of that, direct access where if somebody wants to say something mean to you, they can throw it in your social media feed. There was none of that. And so for us, it was just, about kind of going every day and doing what we could. And also what was unique about that year was Gamble was the host of a regional. So our first 4 games to get to the Final Four were all going to be home games. And we knew that because it had been decided, the year before that was going to be a regional site. So we knew there was a good path for us. But none of us were ever like undefeated national championship. It was just like, okay, who's the next game on our schedule? Going to class. Cause we all went to class. They didn't have online classes. We're sitting in
I
class.
barely had email in those days.
We didn't like, well, I don't know about you, but like there was no Google. Like we were going to
Netscape.
the library with our microfiche, looking up old newspaper articles when we had to write a paper. Like anybody our age or my age at least can understand that reference. It wasn't like, oh, I wonder this, boom, 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 boom on my phone, and all of a sudden I have the answer. Like we had to work for our knowledge, Justin. And we did. But like the trade-off was kind of great. We didn't have all the external nonsense again that young people and professional athletes that anybody has now that kind of deals in the social media world.
The player that I think about with you is Jen Rizzotti. And I mean, you and Rizzotti were the two that everyone would talk about. What's that relationship like now, 30 years later?
Oh, Jen and I have a great relationship. Like she and I were really tight friends in college too. Like, she was the call if I was like on a Tuesday, hey, I'm going out to get a drink. You want to come? And she was like, you need me to come? I need you to come. All right, I'll be there with you. She was like that friend. And what's really, really cool is Jen has 2 boys, and her younger son is the exact same age as my son. I have 1 boy and 3 girls. And so for the last 4 years, so Jen was the coach at the University of Hartford, and then she went down and was the coach at GW. And then she came up to be she's now the president of the Connecticut Sun. when she moved up to Connecticut, her son, I think, was in 8th grade. Our sons were in 8th grade. And the year before, I'd started this AAU team. And I said to Jen, I'm like, does your son want to play on our AAU team? Anyway, he joined the team and she pretty much became the head coach. And so for the last 4 years, she and I have been coaching our sons together. And it's been incredible because, we would practice twice a week. We'd have games, be on the road for a weekend away for an AAU tournament. And so we've really reconnected in a really strong way and brought that friendship back together. But it's been really fun because it's 34 years now that I've known her, and like we have this really really strong bond of a friendship.
You have to tell me, when you guys are together now coaching, do you feel like you're back in college or do you feel like your parents?
Um, well, neither. I think
You're
like,
not calling
well,
her
a
up
little
being
bit
like,
more.
I need to go for a drink. You coming?
Oh, in that regard.
No, just no. I mean, just like
Now
how
that
you
our
act.
boys are older, we do that. But it's really cool because like even when we were players, like Jen was the vocal, fiery leader. I didn't say as much. I just kind of did my thing. And she's like that as a coach too, man. She is fiery and vocal and a phenomenal coach, first of all. It's pretty great to go into a gym, any gym, and you might be in a convention center and there's 60 courts. And especially coaching boys, for the most part, there's never another female head coach. On occasion, there's a female assistant coach. But you go into that environment, and I know that we're not going to get out coached. Jen did this at the college level at a really high level. She was a 3x3 Olympic coach. She was an assistant on Dawn Staley's Olympic squad as a coach. Like she can freaking coach. And you go in and you like looking at around at there might be a coaches meeting and we're the only two women there, and I'm like, yeah, but I got this one at my side, so I know we're good. And she's fiery. She's the exact same as a coach as she was as a player. Like she gets into it sometimes with the other coaches. Like it's pretty funny. But our boys also know like that they're not gonna be out coached. And so they have this incredible trust in her. And it's also really cool to see a group of 16 and 17-year-old boys who think it's completely normal to have female head coaches. Like to them, it's completely normal. It's all that they've known. Um, and then yeah, then we still like we our last tournament, because we actually are done with the boys now that they're rising seniors in high school. Our last tournament we were down in South Carolina in Myrtle Beach and with all the parents, and we were having a good time. We were finding ourselves at dueling piano bars,
Yes.
and I am I am a little bit slightly more responsible than others in those environments, but yeah, we have a really good time.
I can't imagine. I hope those kids all know like who they have coaching them. The fact that it's you and Jen Rizzotti. I mean, first of all, in the state of Connecticut, you guys are legends. But just your basketball acumen, there aren't many high school teams that have that, boys or girls.
Yeah, I would say like their parents, I think, certainly appreciate it because they're of the age where they should. I think the boys understand that Jen's a really, really good coach. And like when we come to practice, like she runs practices like a college practice. I think they understand that piece. I don't know because, they're
Right.
16, 17-year-old boys. And then when they were younger, I don't know that it sinks in that our coach who's coaching us this summer, in 2021, is going to miss a couple tournaments because she's also coaching the women's Olympic team that's about to win a gold medal. Like I don't know that they necessarily process that, but they certainly know that they've got like an elite coach that's running this team.
Any Auriemma and Rizzotti as a coach?
Oh, completely. She and I were laughing at the last tournament. She's like that she is kind of the Coach Auriemma and I'm sort of the Chris Daly because I'm the one like texting the parents like, you know, arrive at the gym at this time. We're wearing our blue uniforms. And then Jen is the one who's like, leading the charge in one of our last games too. Because she like, I think she was getting into it a little bit with the referee for good reason.
Mhm.
And I like kind of got up and was just like, all right, Jen, like simmer down, whatever. And after the game, she texted me. She's like, By the way, did you CD me during the game? You know, because that's Chris Daly's job. He's the get back coach for coach. And I was just like, yeah, I think I did CD.
I love it. I always say that, because of sports, you stay young. And even though you have, 4 kids and Jen's got 2 kids, you still go back to being like those college players and talking about the coaches that you had. Did you just CD me? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
It-
like I did.
It's like it's anytime because they've done a few reunions over the years. It's anytime my 95 team gets together. And we're all in our late 40s, early 50s. When we get together, we're all the same people that we were, 30 years ago. We're all like laughing at Carol Walters for something that she's done, and she's absorbing it in her good-natured, awesome way. It's just when we get back together, it's pretty incredible how like everything goes back to that moment in time. That was evident when we were that 40th anniversary thing I mentioned that happened last November. That you could see that with every team, like every group of players that had been together. Like you just get back and you are who you were. And for most of us, that was a really good place to be because we were having such a good time at that part of our lives.
No doubt about it. Did Gino ever come to see you two coach a game?
No,
Ugh.
no, no. He couldn't like because if we were coaching a girls team, he could have because we may have been in a tournament where he was recruiting or something. Um, but no, I think he probably would have been really proud of Jen, and CD probably would have been really proud of me.
Oh gosh, I would have loved just to show him like film. If somebody had recorded just the two of you on the sideline and be like, that does look like me.
Yeah, and
And then
but
Chris
he
being
would
like,
probably also would be like, because some of the stuff we run is similar to some of the stuff they run. At times, he probably would have also been like, "I like what you're running. You share the ball really well. This is how." And like, and if, when I started with these kids in like seventh grade, like I told them, I said, if you ever like make a three and do any of this nonsense or this nonsense or celebrate yourself, you're coming out. Like just so you know, if one of your teammates does it and you want to like give them fives, whatever, if a teammate falls down, you pick them up. If a teammate's at the free throw line, you give them fives. I make the whole bench stand up when a player comes out. Like all of the other things that they taught us, they certainly like are that's what our boys would do, and it was what second nature to them now. And I'm sure they would see that and be like, they would see some hallmarks of UConn women's basketball for sure, in what our boys were doing.
you mentioned the Olympics and Jen Rizzotti, but you were part of that 1996 team that wins gold in Atlanta. I believe you were the only collegiate player on that team. Is that right?
Nikki McCrae and I
Okay.
were the two who had just graduated from college. She was at Tennessee. She graduated in 95, as did I. Yeah.
Okay. What was it like being part of that team? Because some say that may have been up until recently the greatest women's team of all time.
It was a pretty incredible group of women. And what was really interesting is that so many of the players had been like playing overseas, and so had been kind of forgotten by people in America because there was no professional league here yet. So like Teresa Edwards, who's one of the best guards to ever play women's basketball, or Katrina McClain, who was the best forward on that team. People that weren't necessarily aware of those women because they'd gone to Georgia, graduated overseas, and you kind of lose sight of them. So what was interesting was in 1992, the Olympic team, the U.S. won bronze. They didn't win gold, and so the plan for this team, we had tryouts in 1995. Actually, missed my graduation to be at the
Nice.
tryouts. What a gift I gave my parents, because anybody who's been to a college graduation knows they're not necessarily fun. So did that, and then we started training that summer of 95 and trained the entire year leading up to the Olympics. We played all over the US, we played all over the world, we played in China, Siberia, Australia. And so we played 60 games leading up to the Olympics. And then we get to the Olympics in Atlanta, incredible experience. So the Olympics were both awesome because we win gold, this incredible experience, but they were also grueling because it was a year away from our family. We got paid $50,000. That was our gross, $50,000 for the entire year. And it's not like we were traveling first class. We're in coach seats on United, flying all over the world. We're staying in hotels,
Did you get the
and
miles at least?
we did get the miles at least. Yeah. um So it was, and for me as the young player, it wasn't, it's not like I made friends fast on that team. It was an interesting experience, all of it worth it. Like it was a grind. Again, people were away from their husbands or significant others. Like you were away from your families. It was hard. But then like it was helping build the love for women's basketball. It was in many ways a test balloon for the NBA to see like, ooh, can we start a pro league here? And then, of course, on the heels of that, they did start the WNBA in 1997. So, but the Olympics, it was pretty amazing experience. My only regret from the Olympics, it was because in 1992, as you had the dream team with the men, and they were such a phenomenon in those Olympics in Barcelona that in '96 we did not stay in the Olympic Village. The men's team and the did not stay in the Olympic Village. They were at a hotel for
Right.
security reasons. And so that's what our experience was. My biggest regret is I never even went to the Olympic Village. I never went there, never got to kind of experience being around all of the other athletes. Like we were around the men's team a lot. And that was great, but like my biggest regret, hindsight, is not spending more time at the Olympic Village.
So, because of that, does it feel like you played or were part of the Olympics, or you feel like you missed out?
No, certainly felt like we were, and I didn't go to any other events in that Olympics, but like we were playing in the Georgia Dome, and it had like a giant curtain in the middle, and on one side was the gym was where gymnastics was taking place, and on the other side was us. So sometimes we'd be like going into or coming out of our locker room, and the gymnasts would be going into there, so you were still around other athletes. And like I like to tell a story because it's again one of my fun memories. Is like we'd walk by each other, like they're coming in their line and we're going out, and like we're giving each other high fives, but it's us giving them low fives because
Right.
they're like tiny. And they're like, giving us high fives. And just like, I wish someone had a photograph of that or video of that. Just like, how are we the same species of females? Like some are this big and some are this big. And it had to have been a really fun thing to observe like from the outside. It was really fun to observe as part of it too. But yeah, those are the things I remember. Those are my memories of the Olympics. It's not
Well,
like
think about that '96 women's gymnastics team. That's a heck of a team. I mean, that's a famous squad right there. But they're
of
also
course.
like 15 years old, and they're 4'4", and here you are at 6'4".
Yeah, exactly. That like when like you'd go back and you'd watch. I was watching plenty of the Olympics on TV or whatever, so we knew like what these young little women were doing on all their apparatus.
Wasn't that Carrie Strug?
Yeah, that was a Carrie Strug year.
Like landing on one foot.
Yeah, yeah. So when we gave fives, she wasn't like hopping through the line. It was prior to the injury. So
That's good to know. Good
yeah,
intel right there. There has to be a picture somewhere of you guys
I
doing that.
mean, I don't know, like, because that's before. If there wasn't like a photographer let back there, it's not like somebody had their phone and was like, "This is hysterical. Let me take a picture." So
I
I've never seen one, but I was a part of it, so I'm telling you, it happened.
I wonder if that was the same year, I think it was, where Shaq picked up Dominique Moceanu. And like here's Shaq at like 7 feet, 7'1", and Dominique is like this big. And
You
it's
mean
just
like
an epic.
literally picked up, not
Yes.
like
Yes. What was it like hanging out with the NBA squad, the men's team?
it was fun. And what was fun about that too was I wore number 13 in the Olympics only because it was the last number available, and so that's what I got. And but Shaquille was number 13 on the men's side. So anytime like leading up to the Olympics, we did a couple promotional events. They would pair the players by number, including before we went to Atlanta, we trained in Orlando at Disney, and there was a parade at Disney for the Olympians. We're like in convertibles, and I'm in a car with Shaq. And this it would have been 1996, and it was the summer. Yeah, I think that summer he was a free agent,
To
and
go
he
to
was
LA.
playing for the Orlando Magic at the time. But I think it was right before he signed, maybe to go to LA.
Yep.
But like, so we're in this parade in Disney in a convertible, and like some people are shouting, Shaq, you gotta stay or whatever. And then some people are shouting, Shaq, you bum, you're gonna go to LA or whatever it was. And I'm just sitting there like, He's sitting next to Shaq in this convertible as we're having this parade. But he's always been, great and a supporter of women's basketball and just, one of the more delightful personalities and fun personalities. And that was the case in my experience when we did the Olympic stuff together as well.
What an experience. I mean, you're riding in a convertible with Shaq, probably sitting on the back because neither one of you are going to sit in a seat
Yeah.
in that car.
No, we're sitting on the back. Yeah.
And this is Shaq who in Orlando playing for the Magic. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and have no pictures of that either.
Why would you?
Why would I? Somebody must have, because if you're in Disney, you have a camera. Um, but yeah, like there was all these like fun pockets of like really interesting things that happened, like in the midst of the 10-month misery of training every day. And literally we would get up and you'd have like you'd go to the weight room in the hotel and have to ride the bike, do bike sprints for a half hour and then lift and then you'd go to an open practice and then do an autograph signing. And then later that night, you might have like your closed practice, the third of the day. Like when I say it was grueling, it was grueling. But then nobody touched us come the Olympics. And I don't think we had a game in single digits because we were that's one thing when you compare Olympic teams, and there have been great Olympic teams since then. Of course, they won a gold every Olympic since then. No other team had what that team had in terms of 10 months together to prepare and really come together as a group.
And then what that team did, you mentioned it, but that set the groundwork for the WNBA. It's like they want to capitalize off the momentum that you guys had from that Olympics to launch this startup league.
Hmm.
And you were a part of that. You went to the New York Liberty to be a part of it then and still be a part of it now. What was it like back then realizing that I'm going to guess as a young girl growing up just outside of Connecticut, you thought maybe college basketball, but not beyond that.
Yeah.
Now there is something beyond college. What did that mean?
It was pretty incredible because like I grew up in Massachusetts, so of course Celtics, Larry Bird fan. And my plan had always been, all right, I'll play in college and then I'll go overseas for a couple of years because you could go overseas and make a decent living. I'm like, I'll go up overseas, make some money, come back, go to law school. Like that was my plan. And then all of a sudden, all of this other stuff happens. The Olympics happen. The WNBA is going to start, and it's just like this whirlwind. This incredible whirlwind, starting in really 1994, 95, with all the attention that our UConn team was getting. And so it was just like, this is unbelievably great. Like I get put on the New York Liberty team. And then Teresa Weatherspoon is going to be on that team. That's a player I watched when I was in high school, like playing the national championship with Louisiana Tech with their uniforms with sleeves. That was the big thing with Louisiana Tech, the baby blue uniforms
Yes.
with sleeves. And like in Sue Wicks, who was a legend, because I would go to basketball camps at Rutgers, and I remember, all-time leading scorer at Rutgers, Sue Wicks. She was going to be my teammate with the Liberty as well. And then so the league starts, and before it does, Cheryl Swoops, Lisa Leslie, and I were like for the first three faces of the league, and so we're at like NBA All Star, and going to like parties at Planet Hollywood, and and there's not only like NBA players there, but like movie stars and stuff, and you're like, there's Bruce Willis, there's Arnold Schwarzenegger, like what the heck is happening in my life right now that I'm at this thing with all of these people. And then the league starts, and it's interesting because there's 8 teams and all 8 of them had NBA owners. And so the NBA owners only knew how to do things in an NBA way. So the first couple of years of the WNBA was great. Like we're staying at Four Seasons, Ritz, we're at the Biltmore and Phoenix. Like we're staying where the
Yeah.
NBA team stayed. That changed after a couple of years. But it was like, and we're playing in Madison Square Garden, and we're averaging 16,000 fans in the first couple of seasons. Like there were times in the last 28 years, the history of the W, where fandom has gone up and down, but those early years, like it was packed. There were celebs courtside. It was the real deal. And then living in New York City was pretty awesome too. Living in an apartment, or they had us in a hotel, like literally across the street from the Garden the first couple of years. But we're 23, 24 years old. Going to movie premieres, going to award shows, going to all these things because we're now sort of the fabric of professional athletes in the city. And it was awesome. And so now when I see how far the league has come in terms of overall popularity again, especially the last 2 years of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and all that crew, it's so gratifying to me because like these guys are like living this really fun life, and we had a taste of it in those early years, and they're experiencing it in a much bigger way. And it feels so good to see where the league is now and how far it's come.
In 97, that was during the Yankees' real big run. Derek Jeter. Did you guys get a chance to hang out with the Yankees?
Um, did a few events where Derek Jeter was there. I think I may have been at one of his birthday parties. I may have. Like, at a big kind of like
Yeah.
a big event kind of a deal. Or maybe he and I were both at Whitney Houston's birthday party. I definitely went to Whitney Houston's 40th birthday party, and Derek Jeter was there.
That's a good
Um,
flex right there.
yeah, I mean, pretty great. Like, it was one of my teammates who got us the invite, but our whole team got to go to Whitney Houston's birthday party. Like, these are the things, again, that you're like, what life am I living right now? Um, and yeah, that's when the Yankees were really good. But it was funny because that's the time Michael Strahan was with the Giants, Danny Cannell, and there was one other, and like we were all, and they were all like,
Barber was there.
um, but he wasn't one, like, I'm trying to,
Seahorn, maybe.
Jason Sehorn, that's what it was.
Yeah.
It was Sehorn, Danny Cannell, and what's that?
Strahan.
Yeah, Strahan. But I think they were all maybe rookies at the same time I was, or we were all young. So whenever there was an event, they would like send the young guys. And so like every event, I'd be like, hey guys, hey guys again. Whether it was, again, like an MTV award show or a movie premiere or something, it was like those three guys and me. Like, hey, we're all the same thing again, representing like New York athletes.
That's awesome.
And it was just a good time.
What I love about you is that I could see you being like, hey guys, like, for me growing up and watching you, I didn't realize honestly how cool you were until we worked together. I'm like, she's freaking awesome.
Yeah, I let my prude personality come through in my game calling. But yeah, we like, it was just especially when you're young, you're trying to balance too. Like in those days, there's no social media, so what people had access to is your curated person that you put forth in interviews and stuff. And it's funny because like our locker room with the New York Liberty was hilarious. We have had some great personalities, really fun people on that team. And if they were playing now, people would have a very different window into what those people are like, including probably me.
Becky Hammond was also on those teams,
Yeah,
right?
Becky Hammond. She came in '99, and that was she was undrafted. Came to training camp, won her spot. I was tight with Becky and Sue Wicks. The three of us kind of that was unfortunately a year where I got hurt in the first game of the season. But yeah, another like great, super fun person. Yeah, those were some fun days with the New York Liberty.
Who was the person that you referenced that people would have been like, wow, that's a great personality. We had a jokester there.
Sue Wicks, probably. Like, she is one of the funniest teammates I've ever had. And like a really dry, intelligent sense of humor. Like a coach would say something and she'd say something like just out of the side of her mouth, one of those things that get you with the church giggles. Teresa Weatherspoon, people knew that she was a big personality. But like there's even more there to her person. You saw it a little bit when she was coaching with Chicago a year ago and some of the press conferences and stuff. She could just command a room. She's like a preacher in that regard, and the way she speaks and the way she kind of commands a room. But Becky, very funny, and Sue just like laugh, holding your stomach giggles, kind of funny.
That's fantastic. You talked about the WNBA, what it is now, and right now it's at its height. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, what's going on? What do you think is the biggest change from when it started to where it is today?
Um, I mean, when it started, there was also the ABL. That was playing at the same time the other professional leagues. So you didn't have all of the best players in the WNBA until 1999 when the ABL folded and they all came there. And so, like, I think the talent was great in the early days. There's more great players now. The basketball is even better than it was. Much like in the NBA side, the game has changed in the way it's played in terms of pace and space and the versatility of big players and all of that. Like in the early days, there was a traditional center who was going to post up on the block, could not handle, could not face up for the most part. You might have a Tina Thompson thrown in there, but like for the most part, that was the case. So the game has changed. It's more exciting, more fast paced, higher scoring, all those things now. And then and we've had really high level basketball for a long time. And then like Caitlin Clark adds to the mix where everyone loves watching this young woman play in college and then follows her to the WNBA and exposes a whole new audience of people who've never watched women's basketball, certainly never watched professional women's basketball. And now they're like, oh, this is pretty incredible. Like I came for Caitlin because she's just so fun to watch. But who's like Asia Wilson's pretty amazing. Brandon Stewart is amazing. Kelsey Plum, Nafisa Collier, like there's just a different level of attention being paid to the sport in the last 2 years. And it's because of Caitlin Clark. And that's been proven with metrics
Oh my
and
gosh, yeah.
viewership and ticket sales and all of those things. And, but it's brought this new fan base that also now recognizes, wow, I really like X, Y, and Z on these other teams. And I didn't know, who they were until Caitlin Clark brought me to them.
Can you kind of put into terms the Caitlin Clark effect, the impact that she's having? Like, what is it similar to in another sport?
Um, the only thing I've heard, and this is not original to me, the only thing I've heard of a comparison that I think is pretty close is what Tiger Woods did for golf. Just elevated the entire sport. And when he was playing, the viewership was going to change. And we know that's the case in the WNBA. When Caitlin's playing, our viewership is going to about double from a really good rating to double what a really good rating would normally be. But what was really encouraging is, a year ago, our finals, which was a great finals between the New York Liberty and the Minnesota Lynx, averaged over 1 million viewers for the first time. And Caitlin wasn't playing in those games, so it has helped, the rising tide lifts all boats for sure. But she is the one rising the tide. That's without question. And it's because like she is just really, really fun to watch play basketball. She takes 30 footers. She's the most exciting passer in the game right now. We need her to get back healthy, of course, right? She's missed some time this season with injury, but she just plays basketball in a way that we've never seen a woman play it before. Never seen a woman take this many deep threes, and then you combine that with the way she can pass. It's different and it's exciting and people like watching it and so they do, and it's really just changed kind of the viewership, whether in arena or on TV for the entire league.
For me, it reminds me a lot of Steph Curry
Yeah.
in the sense that, Steph taking the threes, but he's not a giant of a person
Hmm.
and he becomes relatable. And
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark, I feel like a lot of people, you can't help but just tune in and be like, "Oh my gosh, how did she hit that? Are you kidding? Like, what?"
Yeah.
And that's what I felt like with Steph. Like I couldn't turn away from the TV. I had to see what he would do next. And with Caitlin, I feel the same way. Like, do I think she's the best player ever? No, but she is so much fun to watch.
Yeah, it's you. I go back to her freshman year in college. Paige Bueckers was also a freshman. They were freshmen at the same time, and Paige was the National Player of the Year that year. And Sue Bird during that year said Caitlin Clark is the most exciting player in all of women's college basketball. And that was the best way to put it because her freshman year, she wasn't the best player. Paige was the best player, but Caitlin was the most exciting. And Caitlin has remained the most exciting while still being an all WNBA first team talent a year ago. A great player, but there's no one more exciting. There's no one who, just for the reasons that you said, like Steph, you're just watching, like, what is she going to do next? What pass is she going to make? When she gets the rebound, is she going to like throw a perfect quarterback to wide out receiver pass? Like, what is she going to do? And I don't know that there are many other players we've seen in the women's game who kind of draw your focus like that.
The player that I think of is Diana Taurasi.
Mhm.
and just an absolute legend. Another UConn person. You told me a story one time about Taurasi when a
Uh-oh.
recruit came to UConn. Do you remember this story?
I don't, so please remind me.
Okay. So
Was it off the record, Justin?
no, 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 no.
Okay.
Because you said the recruit was there and they were all hanging around. And Storrs, Connecticut is not exactly the most exciting place in the world,
There.
especially for like, a senior in high school who's going to be spending the next 4 years there. And she just turns to the players and she's like, "What do you guys do here for fun?" And Taurasi, without missing a beat, just goes, "Win."
Yeah, pretty much.
Is that why she was like, I mean, Gino's favorite because that's all that mattered to her?
Probably. And with Diana, like, she's a player, great, she just retired. She played last season, just retired. If she was starting her career in the WNBA now, she would be one of those players like Caitlin who would fuel the viewership. Everyone who watched her play, who was a basketball person, loved Diana because how tough she was, how competitive she was. Her ability to, like, she didn't take as many 30-footers, but she would come down and transition and pull for a three. She could really pass. She had a little more, bigger than Caitlin, but she had sort of the moxie and the flair to her game that drew eyes in a way, not to the degree of Caitlin, because no one has done that. But similarly, like, oh, Diana Taurasi's playing, I'm going to watch this game because she's just going to bring all of that extra. And she's one who, her timing was fine because women's basketball at that time was at an all-time high in popularity. But if she came along now, it would have been at a completely different level.
Yeah. Before I get to my last part of this podcast, I have to ask you and your husband, Steve Rushin, an incredible writer. How did you guys meet?
People like this story. So Steve and I, well, I'm playing with the New York Liberty. This is in like 2001, I think. And I'm injured. I had torn my knee consecutively. I torn my ACL, like torn it, rehabbed, torn it. So I'm out. And every day, as part of my rehab, I would go to the east side. I lived on the Upper West Side. Go to the east side to where my therapists were for rehab, and they would always have me start my session by riding the bike for like an hour. It was the thing I could do for cardio, and so like it's boring. And this might have been pre iPods, and so like I would read. I would read while I was on the bike, and one of the things I would read cover to cover every single week was Sports Illustrated. And Steve was writing for Sports Illustrated at the time. He had a weekly column in the beginning of the magazine. So I'm subletting an apartment on the Upper West Side from this guy named John Walters, who worked at Sports Illustrated. I became friends with him because he was writing a book on the UConn women's team. Anyway, I'm subletting an apartment from him. One night he's like, "I'm going to come into the city. I want to show you the neighborhood, like the spots I like to go to, the good restaurants, the bars, whatever." So we go out to eat, and then we end up at this bar called the Dublin House, which is on 86th. It's kind of a dive Irish bar with this big neon harp sign out front. It's a great, like, dive Irish establishment in New York City. So he and I go there to have a drink, and he's like, "A couple of my buddies from Sports Illustrated are going to come here." Now, I had no idea. I've been reading Steve Rushin every week in Sports Illustrated. Had no idea what he looked like because this is before his picture was with his column. Had no idea how old he was. Knew nothing about him other than what I'd been reading for months that he'd written. So he comes in. I was like, "Oh, he's tall, like taller than me. That's always going to get my attention." And but I just say hello. And but the first thing I said to him, I was like, "Are you the guy who wrote the thing making fun of the WNBA a couple of weeks ago?" And you could just see him like turn red. And he said, "Yes." And because he had written a column that was just like a bunch of throwaway one liners. And one of his throwaway one liners was like, "Much like Wilt Chamberlain, I too slept with 8,000 women the other night. I was at a New York Liberty game." So, like, not even, people who are listening to this podcast might be like, "I don't get it." They don't know the whole Wilt Chamberlain.
Yes.
What did he say? 10,000 that he slept?
20,000. Yeah.
Yeah, 20,000. So
Yep.
that was Steve's lame joke. So anyway, I said to him, "Are you the guy who wrote the thing about the WNBA a couple weeks ago?" And he turns all red and he's like, "Yeah, that was me." And I said, "Well, how many Liberty games have you been to?" And he said, "None." And I said, "Well, Obviously, because if you had, you would have known you were sleeping with 16,000 women because that's how many come to our games. So anyway, like our friendship started with me like busting him for something he'd written, and then we became friends, and eventually, like a few months later, ended up dating. And it's funny because like he's not that guy. He's not the guy who just makes fun of women's sports for no reason. Like he's probably on deadline and needed one more thing to put in
Right.
his column. And with three daughters, the amount of youth girls basketball games that man has gone to over the course of the last 15 years. He's more than paid his penance, but and now like he's total, women's basketball fan. He watches when I'm covering games and all of that. But yeah, that's how we met.
And okay, how tall are your kids?
So I'm 6'4", my husband Steve's 6'5". Our son is now he's taller than me. He's 16, and he's about Steve's height, maybe a little taller, about 6'5.5" or so.
Okay.
Our oldest daughter is, when she's standing fully upright, is about 6'3", but she has this like remarkable ability to like get down to like 6'1" when she's in a group of shorter people, especially shorter guys. And then my second oldest daughter, she's 6'1", and then my youngest, my 14-year-old, she's our shorty, she's 5'11".
Oh, the
So they all
runts.
made it into the sixes except for the youngest, but
She might not be done.
maybe she still has a little more.
Gosh, what my family would give for that height.
Yeah. I know but it's like for girls though, it can also be a curse, just finding clothes or finding, your pool of tall prospects for dating is much smaller than it is for the shorties. So
It's funny that you say that because I don't know if you remember this or not, but when we were doing those tournament games, Michigan State was playing and they had a girl who was 6'7",
yep.
and she was a very, very pretty girl. And like, some people who are tall or like they look like awkward, she did not look awkward at all. Like she could be like a runway model. But she had this like look on her face that she was always sad. And I always keep an index card between me and my analyst. So I wrote on a card, why does it look like so and so is always about to cry? And you look at it and you take out your pen and you start writing and you wrote, because she's 6'7" and a girl. It's like, oh, and it's to what you're just talking about. It's like the dating pool is much smaller. She has to hang out with the NBA guys.
First of all, she can't like find shirt sleeves that are long enough to cover her wrists, and like probably is in riding coach in the airplane. And yeah, and like the downsides of being tall. There's a ton of upside to being tall. Now that I'm married and whatever, it's only upside. But the downside when you're a young single woman, is like finding clothes to fit, finding shoes to fit, and then finding like if whether it's a tall man or a tall woman, whatever you're looking for, finding somebody who's taller than you is a big challenge. I don't remember that, but that sounds about right.
I cracked up. I was like, okay, I love this person. She's the
I hope
best.
no
Like,
one's gonna go back to 2010 and look at the Michigan State roster and tell on us.
honestly,
I don't
she's
remember
probably
who it was.
modeling right now, so it doesn't matter. She's living a good life. All
Yes.
right, Rebecca, I like to end all my podcasts with a segment I call This Just In. And this
Okay.
is like rapid fire questions. I think I already know the answer, but your favorite player growing up.
Larry Bird. My second favorite, David Robinson, which is why I wore number 50 at UConn because my high school number was 31. When I was going to go to UConn, there was a senior, Wendy Davis, who already wore 31. So they're like, pick a number. I picked 50 for David Robinson.
I love that. All right. And that was your number with the Liberty as well.
Yeah. My number from college all the way on, except for the Olympics.
Your pinch me moment on the court.
Ooh, probably there was a moment at the end of the national championship game where I looked up at the clock and somebody may have been taking free throws and I was like on the side and I just remember like quickly doing the math in my head with how much time, how many seconds were left and the score and realizing there's no way we can lose this game. And it was
Oh,
soon
wow.
after that where I'm like running down the court with my arms in the air, just like, but that moment when I quickly like saw the scoreboard and realized there's no way we can lose this. Like it's mathematically impossible. And just like the feeling that I had in that second.
See, there was a Stanford kid in you right there, that you could have gone to Stanford. You did the math, and that's why your parents were like, really, Rebecca,
They
at
did
UConn?
math at UConn too, John.
How about the pinch me moment in life?
Ooh.
Whitney's
Um,
40th?
you know what? I was too dumb in those days. Not too dumb. I was too young to have pinch me moments. Like all those incredible things I did when I was, 24, 25, 26, or earlier. Like you're just young and dumb. And so like you don't really absorb it. I have pinch me moments a lot now because I am not young anymore. And so like, sitting down to call a UConn national championship game this past year was like with people I love, like Ryan Rucco, I love, Holly Rowe, I love, Carrie Callahan, our producer, Jimmy Platt, our director. I love all these people and I love working with them. And I now recognize at my age how blessed I am every time I get to do that. And then I had been in the studio for a lot of UConn national championships and I had called plenty of UConn losses in the Final Four, but this year was the first time I'd ever called a UConn national championship win. So after that, there was also like my voice was part of their 12th championship, and that's really cool. So I have a lot of them now because, like, you get older and you reflect. When you're young, you just think this is what life's going to be. Oh, I'm going to be a Whitney Houston's 41st birthday party too, right? Like, you just have no concept of anything.
Me and Stray gonna go out with Seahorn and, just meet up
Yeah,
with
we're just
Whitney. Yeah.
and Angie Harmon because I think they were dating at the
Yes.
time.
And they
She
got
got to
married.
hang
Yeah.
out with all the stars. I did a I did an autograph signing at the NBA store in those days with Destiny's Child. That I like now I look back and see pictures. I'm like Beyonce me, pretty cool. In those days, I'm like I'm just doing a signing at the NBA store. You just
Who's
there's
this person?
yeah. I knew who they were, but it wasn't like you know.
You're like, no scrubs, whatever.
Exactly.
Best game you've ever been a part of?
Oh, best game I've ever been a part of. I'd probably say like one of the UConn games my senior year at Gamble. Maybe the game against Virginia. We're down at the half to get to the national championship. I'm sorry, to get to the Final Four. Came back big half in the second half, and just because we're in front of all of our fans, and there was this incredible energy in the building, and it wasn't a blowout. It was like close and back and forth, and just an exciting basketball experience but to be in an arena full of our fans, that was pretty cool.
Favorite Steve Rushin column?
Ooh, favorite Steve Rushin column? Oof, there's been so many of them. I could easily say the one where he writes about meeting me and us getting married because that's that's the one we have framed upstairs in the hallway. Um, but there's a lot of them, and I would have a hard time even picking out my favorite Steve Rushin book. He's written a lot of books, and Stingray Afternoons, which is a memoir of when he was a boy, is phenomenal. Nights in White Castle is the follow up to that, which is also phenomenal. Um, but yeah, I guess I should probably I'll go with the column where he talks about meeting me and then us getting married.
That's a pretty good one. Last but not least, UConn
These are supposed to be
women's.
rapid fire, by the way, because I'm just going.
No, this is great, honestly. UConn women's all-time starting five.
Ooh, this is this is a
Oh,
hard one because like you need a starting 10, but you'd have to go Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Maya Moore, Brianna Stewart. Do I throw myself on that team?
I do.
All right, I'll throw myself on that team, but I mean, then you're leaving off Tina Charles, you're leaving off Paige Bueckers. Like, there are so many great players who've gone through that program. Jen Rizzotti will be mad at me if I don't have her on the team. But yeah, I probably go D, Sue, Maya, Stewie, and I'll give myself.
And who takes the final shot?
Uh, Bird at the buzzer, baby. I mean,
Oh,
you can't
wow.
really go wrong, but like I, I would I would think Sue or D, prop or Maya. This is a tough one because like if you actually had metrics on it, like if you had stats on it, they probably all made those final ones. I think I'd go Sue.
Oh. Bird at the buzzer.
Bird at the buzzer.
That just goes back to your fandom of Larry Bird. You just like hearing bird at the buzzer.
Maybe, maybe.
Hey, Rebecca, it's been way too long for us to talk, and this has been so much fun for me. The stories are great. You're awesome. So happy to hear what's going on with you and your family broadcasting. Keep it up. You're a Hall of Fame person, not just a Hall of Fame basketball player.
I appreciate that. I will be sending you emails to Hotmail from my AOL, and that's never going to change.
You know what? That's just us being loyal people.
Yes. That like
If you don't like loyalty, you don't like us.
Sue Bird says we like have our throwback emails. So that's what we have.
That's what we have. I love it. Rebecca, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the W season and keep up the great work.
Thanks, Ben.